I was sitting at the far end of our family dining table, watching my mother beam with pride as she introduced my brother Jake to distant relatives. He just made chief of surgery at 37, she announced, champagne glass raised. Our eldest makes us so proud. Then her eyes shifted to me with that familiar, disappointed glance. And this is Clint, our youngest, still playing with books like a child. The room filled with awkward chuckles while I forced a smile, hiding the best-selling author I had secretly become. Little did she know, the truth was about to spill. Tracing invisible circles on the tablecloth, I wondered how long I could keep my success hidden. Before I continue with how everything unraveled at my brother's engagement party, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt underestimated by the people closest to you. Growing up in the Harrison household meant one thing was absolutely clear. Success came with credentials you could frame and hang on a wall. My brother Jake, 5 years my senior, had been on the doctor track since before I could remember. His perfect grades, impressive MCAT scores, and acceptance into a prestigious medical program were celebrated with lavish parties where relatives would slip $100 bills into his palm while whispering congratulations. I still remember my 16th birthday when Aunt Martha asked about my college plans at the kitchen table. Before I could answer, my mother interjected. "We are still trying to get him interested in something practical. All he does is read those fantasy novels and scribble in notebooks." The truth was, I had already written 3 complete manuscripts by then. None were published, but my high school English teacher, Mrs. Daniels, had told me I had a unique voice. "You have a gift for creating worlds, Clint," she would say after class, returning my creative writing assignments with encouraging notes in the margins. My grandfather William was the only family member who supported my passion. A retired literature professor, he would sneak me classic novels and discuss character development with me for hours in his study, while the rest of the family assumed we were working on my math skills. "Do not let them dim your light," he told me 3 weeks before cancer took him when I was 17. "Words have power, and yours have magic in them." He left me his vintage typewriter and a letter encouraging me to pursue writing under a pen name. "Let your work speak for itself first," his letter advised. "Success will be sweeter when earned entirely on your own merit." Taking his advice to heart, I majored in English literature at State University, while my family consistently reminded me I was throwing away my potential. I worked odd jobs to pay for my education, after my parents made it clear they would only fund sensible degrees. While Jake was receiving care packages and having his apartment rent covered during medical school, I was balancing night shifts at the campus library with early morning creative writing sessions. By 24, I had completed what I believed was my first publishable novel under the pen name Alexander West. After 6 months of rejections, Williams' literary agency took interest. Sidney Williams, a sharp-eyed editor with 20 years of experience, called my manuscript refreshingly original and promised to find it a home. "Your voice is exactly what readers need right now," Sidney said during our first meeting. "Raw, authentic, and with a perspective that feels both familiar and entirely new." When North Star Publishing offered a modest advance 3 months later, I celebrated alone in my studio apartment with a bottle of cheap wine and takeout. I wanted to call my family, but decided to wait until I had something more substantial to share. "One book does not make a career," I reminded myself, echoing my mother's pragmatic voice in my head. I continued working my day job at a local bookstore while pouring every spare moment into promoting my debut novel through blog tours and social media engagement. Sidney had warned me that first-time authors rarely made waves, but something about my story of an ordinary person discovering extraordinary abilities resonated with readers in an unexpected way. 6 months after publication, The Awakening hit the extended New York Times bestseller list at number 15. 2 months later, it climbed to number 3. Foreign rights were sold to publishers in 12 countries. My advance for the sequel was 6 times larger than my first, and still I told no one in my family who Alexander West really was. The quarterly Harrison family dinners became increasingly difficult to endure as my secret success grew alongside my family's diminishing opinion of me. During one particularly painful Sunday lunch, 3 years into my publishing career, my mother cornered me by the kitchen while I was refilling my water glass. "Your cousin Travis just made partner at his law firm," she said, arms crossed. "And your second cousin Amanda is finishing her PhD in biochemistry." When are you going to get serious about your future, Clint? The bookstore job was cute in your 20s, but you are 32 now. What my mother did not know was that I had quietly quit the bookstore job 18 months earlier when royalty checks made working unnecessary. My third book had just sold film rights to a major studio, and I was in negotiations for a television adaptation of my first series. The advance for my newest book contract would have paid for their house several times over. I am working on something, Mom, I offered cautiously. A creative project that might lead somewhere. She sighed, that distinctive sigh reserved exclusively for me. Honey, your little stories are a nice hobby, but they will not pay the bills. Jake is looking for a research assistant at his hospital, someone to help organize patient files. It is entry level, but could lead to hospital administration if you apply yourself. The well-intentioned humiliation burned worse than outright criticism. My novels had collectively sold over 4 million copies worldwide by that point. The pattern repeated at every family gathering. Jake would arrive fashionably late, usually straight from the hospital in his scrubs or white coat because emergencies wait for no one, and the family would erupt in applause like he had walked on water. Meanwhile, my mother would introduce me to new additions to the family circle with diminishing enthusiasm. This is our younger son, Clint. He works with books. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving last year. Extended family had gathered from across the country to celebrate Jake's recent promotion to chief of surgery. Among the guests were my mother's college roommate, Teresa, and her husband, Grant, wealthy philanthropists who donated generously to medical causes. One son makes us proud every day, my mother announced during the toast, gesturing toward Jake, and the other still plays with books like a child. The table erupted in laughter, while I focused intensely on my mashed potatoes. My father, always more reserved than my mother, but equally disappointed in my choices, gave me a sympathetic glance, but said nothing in my defense. Later that evening, Jake pulled me aside to offer some brotherly advice. You know, it is not too late to do something meaningful with your life, he said, clapping my shoulder with the confidence of someone who had never doubted his path. I could introduce you to some people, get you started in healthcare administration. The benefits are excellent. The genuine pity in his eyes hurt more than any condescension. Despite our differences, Jake and I had been close as children before. Ambition and family expectations had driven a wedge between us. Now he viewed me with the same charitable concern one might show a perpetually unemployed distant relative. 3 weeks later, Jake called to announce his engagement to Sophia Martinez, a brilliant dermatologist he had met at a medical conference. Their engagement party was scheduled at the Harrison family lake house, and attendance was mandatory. Wear something decent, my mother instructed during her follow-up call. Sophia comes from an excellent family, and we want to make a good impression. Her father is the chief of cardiology at Massachusetts General. I hung up the phone, feeling the familiar mixture of resentment and resignation. For years, I had fantasized about revealing my success, imagining the shocked expressions and stammered apologies. But something always held me back. Perhaps it was the fear that even this accomplishment would somehow be diminished in comparison to Jake's real career. Or maybe it was the realization that I had waited too long, making any revelation now seem like a deliberate deception. Whatever the reason, I decided the engagement party would be like any other family gathering. I would smile, endure the backhanded compliments, and return to my real life afterwards. Little did I know fate had other plans. The Harrison Lake House glowed with string lights and echoed with laughter when I arrived 30 minutes late to the engagement party. Crystal glasses clinked while catering staff in crisp uniforms weaved through clusters of well-dressed medical professionals and family friends. You missed the first toast, my mother hissed, as I entered, eyeing my blazer and button-down shirt with mild approval. At least you dressed appropriately. What she did not know was that my appropriate outfit cost more than most guests' entire wardrobes. The watch alone, a gift to myself, after signing my latest international deal, was worth more than the catering bill for the entire event. Sorry, traffic, I mumbled, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. Jake spotted me from across the room and waved me over his arm, wrapped around a stunning woman with intelligent eyes and an elegant black dress. Clint, finally. This is Sophia, my fiancée. Jake beamed. Sophia, my little brother, the bookworm. It is wonderful to meet you, Sophia, said her handshake firm and warm. Something in her eyes suggested genuine curiosity rather than the polite dismissal I had grown accustomed to from Jake's social circle. "Jake mentioned you work at a bookstore. I am a voracious reader myself when I can find the time. I actually left the bookstore a while back," I said, noting Jake's surprised expression. "I am focusing on writing now." "Really? What do you write?" Sophia asked, as Jake was pulled away by a colleague wanting to discuss some groundbreaking surgical technique. For the first time at a family function, someone was actually interested in my work. The conversation flowed easily as we discussed favorite authors and literary genres. Sophia's knowledge of contemporary fiction impressed me, and I found myself genuinely enjoying a family gathering for once. "I primarily write speculative fiction with elements of magical realism," I explained, relaxing slightly. "Stories about ordinary people discovering extraordinary abilities or hidden worlds existing alongside our own." Sophia's eyes widened. "That sounds remarkably similar to Alexander West's work. Have you read his Awakening series? The third book absolutely wrecked me emotionally. The scene where Marcus finally confronts his father about the inherited abilities he has been suppressing. Literary perfection." My heart raced as Sophia described in perfect detail a pivotal scene from my most personal work. The character's confrontation with his father had been a thinly veiled exploration of my own complicated relationship with my family's expectations. I might have read some of his work. I managed taking a large sip of champagne. He is absolutely brilliant. His latest book is sitting on my nightstand right now. The way he weaves social commentary into fantasy frameworks is unprecedented. Critics are calling him the voice of our generation. While Jake was busy holding court with hospital administrators and family friends, Sophia and I continued our literary discussion in a quiet corner. I noticed her occasionally glancing at her phone, but thought nothing of it until she suddenly gasped loudly enough to draw attention from nearby guests. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes darting between her phone screen and my face. "You are him. You are Alexander West." The room seemed to freeze. Jake, hearing his fiancée's exclamation, broke off his conversation and headed our way. My mother, always attuned to potential embarrassment at social functions, was not far behind. "What is going on?" Jake asked, placing a protective arm around Sophia. "Your brother," Sophia said, her voice trembling with excitement, "is Alexander West. The Alexander West." Blank stares greeted her announcement until she thrust her phone forward, displaying the author photo from my publisher's website alongside my most recent book cover. "Who is Alexander West?" my mother asked, with the dismissive tone she reserved for anything she deemed culturally insignificant. "Only one of the most successful authors of the decade," Sophia explained, scrolling through article after article about my work. "His books have sold millions of copies worldwide. He has been translated into 27 languages. There is a film adaptation in production with a list actors attached." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's jaw physically dropped. My mother's carefully maintained social smile froze in place. Jake stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. "Is this true?" my mother finally asked. Something inside me snapped. Years of diminishment, of politely accepting their condescension, of hiding my success to avoid conflict, or perhaps to avoid seeing the goalposts moved yet again, all coalesced into a moment of perfect clarity. "Yes," I said simply. "I have been Alexander West for 8 years now. Why would you keep this from us?" Jake demanded, his expression oscillating between shock and betrayal. "Would it have mattered?" I asked, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Would a writing career ever have measured up to medicine in this family, regardless of its success?" "Of course it would have," my mother insisted, though her tone lacked conviction. "Really? Because at Thanksgiving you told everyone I still play with books like a child while raising a toast to Jake. I had just won the National Book Award that month. The party had gone completely silent, guests pretending not to eavesdrop while hanging on every word. My third book paid for Dad's knee surgery last year. I continued, unable to stop now that the dam had broken. You thought it was your insurance, but it was me. The advance for my current contract is more than Jake will make in the next 5 years. I own a penthouse in Manhattan and a villa in Italy. I have been invited to speak at Harvard, Yale, and Oxford about my work." My father had moved to sit down, his expression unreadable. My mother's carefully applied makeup could not hide the redness creeping up her neck. If you had bothered to Google my name even once in the past 8 years, you would have known all of this, I finished. But you were all too busy feeling sorry for me to consider I might have found success on my own terms. The aftermath of my revelation was as dramatic as one might expect. Several guests, recognizing the name Alexander West, asked for impromptu autographs, which only intensified the family's shock. My mother retreated to the kitchen ostensibly to check on dessert, but really to compose herself. My father sat in stunned silence, while Jake paced by the lakeside windows, periodically shooting confused glances in my direction. Only Sophia seemed genuinely delighted, peppering me with questions about my writing process and upcoming projects with unfeigned enthusiasm. When my mother returned, her eyes were slightly red. "Why did you never tell us?" she asked quietly. "I tried in my way," I answered honestly. But every time I mentioned writing, it was dismissed as a hobby or a phase. After a while, it seemed easier to keep my worlds separate. "We would have been proud," she insisted, though we both recognized the lie. "You would have found a way to make it less than it was," I corrected gently, "the same way you have been doing my entire life." Jake rejoined the conversation, his initial shock hardening into something more defensive. "So you have been deliberately hiding your success to what make us look bad? Some kind of revenge plot?" "Not everything is about you, Jake," I replied, surprised by my own calmness. I wanted my work to stand on its own merit, not be judged through the lens of family expectations. "Grandpa William," suggested using a pen name, and he was right. William knew my father spoke for the first time, his voice hoarse. "He was the only one who ever believed in me," I admitted. "His last gift to me was the freedom to follow my own path without your judgment clouding it." The party dissolved shortly after, guests making awkward excuses to leave early. As I prepared to depart, Sophia caught my arm. "For what it is worth, your work changed my life," she said sincerely. "The awakening helped me through medical school when I was questioning everything. Your words gave me permission to forge my own path, even while following family traditions." Her kindness was the first genuine thing I had felt all evening. "Thank you for seeing me," I replied when my own family could not. In the weeks that followed, my phone filled with belated congratulatory messages from relatives who had previously ignored my existence. My mother called daily, her voice tentative and unfamiliar, without its usual undercurrent of disappointment. "I have been reading your books," she said during one call. "They are extraordinary, Clint. I had no idea you had such depth inside you." I tried to tell you, I reminded her gently. "I know," she whispered. "I think perhaps I was afraid of that you would succeed where I had failed. I wanted to write once. Did you know that? Before I met your father, I was going to major in creative writing, but my parents convinced me it was impractical." This revelation stunned me into silence. All those years of pushing Jake and me towards sensible careers suddenly made a different kind of sense. My father, never one for emotional conversations, sent a simple text after finishing my first novel. "Your grandfather would have been proud. So am I." Jake took longer to come around. His initial reaction mixed shock with something that looked suspiciously like jealousy. We met for coffee 3 weeks after the party, his engagement to Sophia temporarily on hold while they reassessed their compatibility following a heated argument about his reaction to my success. "I always thought I was protecting you," he admitted, staring into his untouched latte, "pushing you towards something stable because creative careers are so uncertain. I never imagined you would surpass all of us. Success is not a competition, Jake." I told him, realizing I finally believed it, and security comes in many forms. Sophia and I developed an unexpected friendship. She became my most insightful early reader, offering perspectives from her scientific background that enhanced my latest manuscript. Her relationship with Jake slowly mended as he began to recognize his own part in our family's dynamics. The journey of healing with my family continues, filled with awkward conversations and genuine attempts to see each other clearly for perhaps the first time. My mother has joined a writing group. My father asks questions about my work with newfound respect. Jake has admitted to keeping a journal of his own. As for me, I have learned that sometimes the greatest validation comes not from external success, but from finally being seen for who you truly are, standing in your authentic power without apology. What would you have done in my place? Would you have revealed your success sooner, or kept it hidden to protect yourself from judgment? Leave a comment below, sharing how you have handled family expectations that did not align with your true path. Do not forget to like this video. Subscribe to hear more stories about family dynamics and personal growth, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that success comes in many forms. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that the most important validation always comes from within.